Boys and girls, we are fresh off of UFC 291 in Salt Lake City, which is an absolute ridiculous card. We knew it was going to be a ridiculous card, but I believe there was 9 of 11 fights were finishes, which is crazy. One of those finishes was Kevin Holland finishing Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa being known as a BJJ guy, and Kevin Holland going out there and Darce choking him. I believe it was in the second round. But it looked like Kevin Holland, with just a little bit of wrestling, is a huge, huge problem. We all knew Kevin Holland is a taller guy for either weight class. He's even tall at 185. This fight was obviously at 170, but he's 6'3", had a 5.5-inch reach advantage over Michael Chiesa. And Michael Chiesa is not a short 170-pounder. He's close to 6 foot, at least, maybe 6'1", and is a very long, lanky guy. Kevin Holland had a 5.5-inch reach advantage over him. So when you talk about Kevin Holland as an athlete, the biggest knock on him was, well, he could trash talk and he could be a long, rangy, accurate, powerful striker. But his wrestling was somewhat subpar. He would get taken down, a couple of his fights getting taken down, getting held down. And then, of course, we all know the famous fight where he was talking through the cage to DC or to Khabib, both trying to get some wrestling advice from either of them. But it looks as though Kevin Holland has cleaned up his wrestling a little bit. He's obviously been focused on his wrestling because Michael Chiesa, being a great grappler, good wrestler, wasn't able to get him down, keeping the fight standing. He did get pushed up against the cage a little bit. He was able to reverse the position and then keep the fight standing until he went out and choked out Michael Chiesa. But the biggest thing here is Kevin Holland is a problem. He's an absolute problem if he just gets a little bit of wrestling. So when you unpack Kevin Holland, who he is, what his career has been thus far, he's 25-9. So you say, well, the guy's got 9 losses, but I want to bring it to you that he lost 3 fights before he even got to the UFC, and then he lost his first fight in the UFC. Obviously, Dana White Contender Series, but then going in, making it to the show, or to the big show, rather, and then losing his first fight in the UFC. So he's lost 4 fights basically before his UFC fight career even started. So, and then when you talk about the guys that he has fought thus far, his losses now in the UFC: Derek Brunson, Marvin Vettori, Stephen Thompson. Obviously, we all remember the Khamzat Chimaev fight, which Khamzat is just an absolute beast, and he's done this to numerous people. So if you think about those 4 losses coupled with the 4 losses that he had before the UFC, the man is only 30 years old. He's just now hitting his prime. I say this to all the young fighters out there. You don't really become a real man, a true mature man in this sport, till your late 20s. A lot of people say this is a young man's sport. The young men are coming in and overtaking the old guys. I just don't think that's true. I think that was conventional wisdom. It made a lot of sense before a lot of advancements. Now you're seeing guys focusing a lot more on recovery, a lot more on longevity, a lot more on treating this career like a professional athlete. And although Kevin Holland says some funny things, although Kevin Holland is a kind of a trash talker, although Kevin Holland fancies himself, he kind of fancies himself that guy who's somewhat of a trash talking, street fighting, kind of brawl, kind of make it a crazy fight type of fighter. He's taking the sport seriously. He's focused on the places that he needs to get focused on, which was his wrestling. And obviously we saw very great strides in this fight with Chiesa not being able to take him down. So you talk about 25-9, not a great record, but do we really have to have great records in the sport to become championship level? That's the question. Of course, we're going to have your Khabibs who were undefeated. Of course, you're going to have your John Joneses who really has never lost a fight inside of the octagon, aside from that one DQ. Looking at guys who are just extremely dominant and have very few losses, I believe Kevin Holland, polishing up his wrestling, continuing to take the sport as seriously as he is, continuing to elevate, and with the elevation of the platform comes more pressure to do things right, be more disciplined, continue creating skills, and also create a life for yourself. 25-9 with 4 of those losses, almost half of his losses coming before his UFC career even got started. I'd venture to say the man's got championship level skills if he continues to acquire them. He was on a 5-fight win streak a couple of years. When he came into the UFC, he lost that first fight to Thiago Santos, beat a couple guys, lost to Brendan Allen, who's a friend of mine, which that's a tough out every single time. Then he went on a 5-fight winning streak, which is not easy to do. Fighting in the UFC, fighting the toughest guys in the entire world, being able to string together 5 wins, it just goes to show that Kevin Holland is a problem with his length, with his speed. And then his length plus his speed, most of the time those guys don't have one-punch knockout power like we saw against Jacare. What is this, back fist? They were on the ground. He wasn't even in a powerful athletic stance to be able to throw that kind of power shot and knocks out Jacare. Kevin Holland's a problem. He's going to have a reach advantage over almost everybody he fights. And that's even at middleweight. I would like to see Kevin Holland, if he can make 170, if it's not just crazy hard for him to stay at 170, I would love to see him stay at 170. So Kevin, if you're listening, think about staying at 170. I think he can make a title run at 170. That's how good the guy is. 6'3" at 170 that's a problem. But Kevin Holland's a problem no matter what. Coming out of Dana White Contender Series, losing the first fight in the UFC, and then being able to he hasn't won every single fight. Of course, he's lost 4 or 5 fights now in the UFC, but it's always been the top level competition. As I said, Stephen Thompson is a hard puzzle to solve for anybody. Marvin Vettori is championship level, as we have seen. Derek Brunson as well, and then obviously Khamzat. Do we even count Khamzat? Pretty much anybody in the world thus far has been losing to Khamzat Chimaev. So I think Kevin Holland, hats off to him for this performance. I honestly thought Chiesa was going to be able to, I thought he was going to be able to take Holland down. I thought he was going to be able to make it more of a grappling match. And Kevin Holland is a great grappler. Obviously, you saw him with the Darce choke, but with those long arms that he has, you can see in the picture here. I mean, the dude is just all arms. His hands go way past his waist, and when he locks up that Darce choke, it's pretty much over. I was looking through his record here, and he's got a couple different Darce choke submissions. But hats off to Kevin Holland. I believe he is a problem. I believe he should stay at 170 if it's not too crazy of a cut. I believe he should continue to work on his wrestling, which obviously he has been. And if he does, with that 81-inch reach, with that 6'3" frame, who possesses speed and power at the weight class at 170, I think Kevin Holland can make a title run. I think Kevin Holland is an absolute problem for anybody. Let me know if let me know if you agree. Let me know if you think I was on or off about anything here in the comments below. Thank you all so much for joining me on my YouTube channel as we continue to break down these awesome fights, these awesome fighters, these awesome matchups in the beautiful sport that we call mixed martial arts. God bless. I'll see you at the top.